Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Good Orderly Direction, Practical Tools of the Bible. Today we're discussing Exodus 5, the plea to the Pharaoh, and the beginning of the plagues. I'm your host, Dr. Dawnelise Snipes. So Moses and Aaron had been conferring with God, and God told them what they needed to do. So they've gone to the Pharaoh and said, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go so that they may celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness." But the Pharaoh said, "Who is this God that I should heed him and let Israel go? I do not know this God, and I will not let Israel go." Sound familiar? A ruler with absolute power who is not guided by good orderly direction and does not claim to believe in a higher power of God. Well, in our current situation, we do have leaders that may profess to believe in God, but are they guided by good, orderly direction? Then Aaron and Moses said, "The God of the Hebrews has revealed himself to us. Let us go on a 3 days journey into the wilderness to sacrifice to the Lord our God, or he will fall upon us with pestilence or sword." But the Pharaoh said to them, "Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their work? Go to your labors." That same day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people, as well as their supervisors, "You shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves, but you shall require of them the same quantity of bricks as they have made previously." And the supervisors of the Israelites, whom the Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten and were asked, "Why did you not finish the required quantity of bricks yesterday and today, as you did before?" So the Pharaoh made the job a lot harder, but then the supervisors were punished because the workers couldn't get the job done under these harder conditions. So what's the lesson here? The Pharaoh was guided by pride and selfishness and didn't respect the Israelites. We see that. We see that the Pharaoh looking at the Israelites simply as widgets or pawns to help him become richer and more powerful. When people are guided by the desire for greed and lust for power, money, and luxury instead of love, how does it impact the community around them? In Matthew, they talk about the wide gate and the narrow gate. Kind of what we're talking about here. When people are guided by greed and lust, some of the people want to take their stuff, so they always have to be on guard. If somebody has a lot of stuff, then there's going to be a group of people who don't have stuff who say, "I want that, so I want to take it," whether by force or by earning it. So the person in power always has to be on guard and vigilant of their stuff and ensure they show no sign of weakness. So when the Pharaoh was challenged, he was like, "Oh, no, I'm going to show you who's boss. Thank you very much." Other people who have no desire for the stuff can be harder to manipulate because there's nothing to bribe them with. You can't say, "Oh, you do this for me, then you're going to get more power, more money, more stuff." These people aren't motivated by that. They're motivated by love and community and don't have that same motivation. What we see here is that resistance leads to greater oppression. When the leader is not able to manipulate and control those beneath them, they may resort to increasing oppression and increasing their show of power. The Pharaoh feels challenged and knows he's not respected, so he uses brute force. How do we see this in play today when leaders or heads of household feel threatened and start using coercion, threats, intimidation, economic, physical, and emotional abuse, or using children to manipulate adults? So think back what the Pharaoh must have been doing back then, and think to now. How are these things paralleling? And I encourage you to look at the power and control wheel, because these are the characteristics that we see in in domestic violence, in violence. Then Moses turned again to the Lord and said, "O Lord, why have you mistreated this people? Why did you ever send me? Since I first came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has mistreated this people, and you've done nothing at all to deliver your people." Well, now we're looking back, hindsight's 2020. We recognize that, God's all powerful, and that's kind of brazen to be being quite so abrupt with God. However, Moses is human. Moses feels powerless at this point. He's bearing the brunt. He feels guilty for what's happened to these people. And he's going, "God, why is this happening? I thought we were going to, go." When we find ourselves confused about what to do, we ought to go to God and lay open our case with fervent prayer. When we find ourselves confused, we ought to lay out our case and think, using good orderly direction, what are the right steps to take? It won't necessarily always produce rewards right away, but sometimes we have to fall back on that courage that we have to have, that endurance of trials before we actually get there. Disappointments and failures must not drive us from God, but encourage us to think about why they are sent. If we have disappointments and failures, we need to think, okay, what can we learn from this? How is this strengthening us so we can actually emerge? It's often said it's darkest before the dawn. We often experience the greatest discomfort or pain right before a change. In recovery circles, we often call this hitting bottom. People are often not motivated to make a change until it's too uncomfortable to stay the same. I had a mentor in graduate school who always used to say, "Change causes crisis, and crisis causes change." When people don't feel uncomfortable, they're not going to do the hard work of changing. So the Israelites really had to feel truly uncomfortable, because this trek through the desert, it wasn't going to be no picnic. So they needed to recognize that how bad it was. And no matter how bad it got in the wilderness, it still wasn't as bad as what it was under the Pharaoh. Moses and God, obviously, knew that this trek out of Egypt on foot with children and animals through the desert was going to be extremely difficult. He may have anticipated the Pharaoh's reaction, but didn't start with all the wonders that we're getting ready to see, because he needed to do what we sometimes call raising the bottom to get people truly motivated. He needed to make sure that people got truly uncomfortable. Consider how the discomfort you are experiencing now might be helping you to get motivated to do the hard work of making a change.